Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending, showing up to this. My name is Ryan McCartney, and my project was titled Pixel Focus. It was a study into ADHD and gaming. A little bit about myself. I am a four-year at West Oahu's campus. I was originally going to graduate class of 2016 from Milani High School, but during the last year, right after my junior year, we moved to California. So instead, I graduated at Herbert Hoover over in Glendale, California, and then we moved back here shortly after, about 3 years later. Um, I'm in the general creative media degree, and then I have a major focus on social media analysis, video games, and then of course video editing. For the executive summary, I intend to create a podcast and or short film. It might be one or the other, or it might be both, regarding the relationship between ADHD and video games. Through this study and research, it focused primarily on the facts that ADHD has common symptoms with people that may or may not have deepened relationships with individuals that partake in sim activities that provoke stimulation in the mind. And I wanted to study particularly the effects of video games. This does not generate towards any particular form of video game media, more concrete design, but it will explore certain aspects between genre or video game types, such as maybe ones that have educational purposes or just in general are there for entertainment purposes. This focus is to understand the relationship and to give insight between the mental disorder and the media type, as well as to properly address both positive and negative aspects associated with the topic. I chose the media type because I feel it's easier to digest, and especially I feel like there's a deep personal connection. I also think I can use a lot of my critical thinking as well as push a lot of my social skills as well as skills with media such as video editing or maybe using social media to promote this sort of content for people that might be interested in viewing it. My thesis was this research seeks to explore the benefits, of course, and disadvantages that video games bring to individuals with ADHD by examining the relationship between the two through studies, growing discussions and experiments, and expert perspectives. My objective and rationale, the research was done through analyzing studies, expert opinions, and then ongoing discussions in order to determine and compare the relationships between ADHD and video games. My initial research was done to, one, define both of the topics that I was studying, and then give a general understanding to them before making the connection between them. Uh, the rationale for this was that as an area of research that is constantly being updated or studied with the growing development and evolution of video games and media types, I wanted to collect stances regarding that particular dynamic from a neutral perspective. That way, there wasn't any sort of bias for or against it, but more so to create an understanding of how this can both help and areas and where it may not help. This research was particularly done because I have been personally impacted by both subjects in mind. I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think around 7 or 8 years old, and took a lot of medication for it. But I was also introduced to video games from a very early age, and I feel like there has been a lot of deep personal connection in how the two have constantly either complemented each other or fought with the rest of my life. My capstone plans are to deliver mostly a podcast and, of course, as I mentioned before, maybe a video regarding the research that I've conducted between ADHD and video games, their relationship. These forms of medias are done to be readily accessible for those who wish to hear or view them. The significance. ADHD has been studied for decades. I think the primary studies were done all the way back since the 1950s or 1960s. And ironically, video games also started to see more prevalence during that time too. These problems that ADHD has associated with are often seen as a lack of focus, disruption of daily activities, and of course, one of the more important ones that make it into studies is the poor performance in school or academic activities. With the turn of the century and more media types, the evolution of technology, ADHD is now pushed on a new forefront, and a lot of these media types have seen more progressive and rapid development that I think research has not yet caught up to, but is slowly starting to focus onto. And I want to make sure that I'm keeping a lot of the facts correct, but I'm also wanting to see if there are any expert opinions as into new video game types or as well as how the research has updated over time. Um, well, it is long since been studied and linked to several changes in cognitive focus and behavioral symptoms within individuals. Like I said, the studies are still continuing. A lot of studies that I have done on the research say that there needs to be more research done on this topic before any conclusions can be drawn. The focus on video games, particularly their relationship or dynamic with ADHD, what has been focused long on a negative connotation. This is due to addiction or perhaps a focus on academic activities and how prioritization of academic activities might not take focus or priority versus engaging with video games. But I also believe that video games have a strong avenue for media development and skill growth. What if we explored both the negatives and the positives of their relationship? And we could also could possibly be an alternative method for helping to develop mind cognitive skills in individuals that deal with that. Um, The data that I chose to display both focuses on the left positives and on the right negatives. The left is a data done about treatment of video games for individuals with ADHD. Particularly that media type was done with VR, and the VR was kept with a bunch of technology in order to analyze certain elevations in cognitive focus or in responses in individuals. And the horizontal axis, the x-axis, focuses on the time periods as well as the level of the data. And the vertical is a representation of certain measurements of cognitive focus. And so there is a high period of development between the middle and continues to steadily grow between that. The right is the negative focus, which it doesn't directly correlate to ADHD, but because addiction, gaming disorder, and ADHD are commonly seen in relation based on several studies, it is worth showing data or graphs that talk about these features, about what what negative consequences that ADHD and unchecked video game usage could do to an individual. My target audience, ADHD has grown in worldwide. We see a prevalence in ADHD being diagnosed in both children and adults in current age. And I feel like this topic can really help tackle a lot of that focus in certain ways. But the first thing I wanted to do was target parents whose children are diagnosed with ADHD. I suppose this takes sort of a personal turn because I was personally affected by ADHD, and that I feel like my parents didn't know whether or not the cause or the issue was due to video games and or ADHD. There was a lot of mismatched focus, and I feel like that dynamic that families have may create confusion as to where the problem lies in or what solutions could possibly be taken. The second focus would be individuals with ADHD. I know, speaking from a personal standpoint or giving a lot of perspective to those that tackle this issue or relate to this issue in a certain way, will help create more alleviating like mindset when it comes to engaging in activities such as video games, as they're not inherently bad and they're a focus of entertainment. And so I don't think they should be seen in a negative light. but also it should be mentioned during the project that there is a limit to these sort of activities and what impact they could have on your life. The last one isn't my direct focus, but I feel like this project can still apply to friends and or distant family, an individual knows that deals with ADHD as well. As I said, the proposed solution is to bring light and awareness to the dynamic of the two subjects. They have not shared a positive light together, but certain studies and focused research yet yields results that may see that ADHD can have both positive and negative impacts in the lives of those. Ooh, oops, that's weird. Sorry, is everything? Sorry, I'll leave it a little bit. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, to continue, the studies and research that may um, help create new solutions or answers to parents who are not aware of the relationship between the two subjects. My preparation and process for this, weeks 1 through 3, I outlined as the script writing. So whilst most podcasts and intentionally mine won't follow a direct script, I still want there to be an outline so I could focus on what to talk about as well as in what areas that I may talk about it. This is to test my equipment as well as my editing tools, to do mock tests to make sure that everything is good. And then, of course, the most important part is to seek out interviews with expert opinions or individuals that may have better insight into this sort of topic than myself, and to ask them to go more into detail about what help they can offer or what their opinions are in the situation. Um, Weeks 4 through 12, I want to finalize that script and outline. I want to get into contact with the interviews if possible, and then be able to do recording on that. I want to record the individual parts as well to capture my ideas of flow, maybe look at it, refer back to it, and then finalize it. I want to focus on the latter half of those weeks doing a full length recording and then working on feasibility with certain editing tools such as Adobe Premiere and then other recording software. And then the final few weeks, I want to focus on finding accessible platforms to post the podcast. I want to finalize the pre-recording podcast to make sure that it's set to go and push up. Set up accounts for the podcast as well as the platforms that I want to use, and then post the podcast as well. My deliverable is a 20 to 40-minute podcast. This may be several episodes to cover several ideas as to not clutter up a lot of detail. So maybe an episode that focuses on detailing what the two topics are, as well as why they're being talked about. Maybe one to talk about the positives and one to talk about the negatives. Um, this is using, of course, professional and expert opinions. I would really like to get interviews with maybe on-campus psychology professors, or maybe somebody out in Arizona since I'm moving to there after the summer, talking to experts or professionals that may give me better insight, maybe using examples about what's being talked about on social media outlets such as TikTok, Instagram, having a structured layout and flow. And of course, as I mentioned, an interview with relevant individual. Um, Distribution of podcasts onto relevant, easy platforms. I want to be able to use a lot of my knowledge with social media, both personal and learn through some of the courses that I've taken over the past few semesters to set up on platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, in order to provide a lot of the content that I wish to push out. But in this case, it would just be a podcast. So looking more towards platforms that may be better suited for that media format. And then engagement strategy and post-production, talking about the social media aspects, being able to interact with intended platform post-production, engaging with comment sections and assessing feedback for future endeavors in case I do continue to pursue this outlet, and then using constructive criticism and feedback to promote learning or understanding of the topic. And that is it. Thank you so much for attending. Sorry about the little technical errors there, but any questions?